Hello, my name is Francis Evans and I want to talk a little bit about the events around December of this year 2012 and the astrology of this. Now, to begin with, I need to put a framework up as to how I understand how astrology works and how it affects us. So astrology is not about how a planet affects people by its position, but it's all to do with how the solar wind affects everything inside the solar system, including the magnetosphere of planet Earth, and how the planets themselves affect the solar wind. So the solar wind affected by the positions of the planets affect the magnetosphere, which in turn affects everything magnetic on the planet, including the bodies of water. So in a way, what we're looking at is the effect of the planets on the wind of the sun, of the position of the sun relative to planet Earth. So a lot of people have been talking about the end of the Mayan calendar is on the date of the 21st of December in 2012, which of course is about the time of the solstice, whether that's a summer solstice in the southern hemisphere or a winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. So first of all, I want to point out that that is the sort of time or timing that you would choose if you were planning or predicting many thousands of years in advance. So I want to suggest that if you look at the actual astrology of the time, the timing of it is not the 21st, but the 28th, starting on the 28th of December for a 3-day period, the 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st period of time. And if you look at the actual charts, and when I have looked at this, I'm looking, of course, in Auckland, New Zealand, but relative, to the positions of the ascendant and the midheaven and houses and so on, the planets are all in the same relativity to one another. So what we're seeing essentially is the boundaries of the solar system. That is the innermost body, the sun, and its outermost body, Pluto, coming into alignment. Now Pluto is a binary system anyway. It's a system where the planet and its moon are almost identical in size, and so they pose the edge of the dual reality that we exist in, and it's essentially the edge of consciousness as we know it, the edge of the known and the unknown realities, or the conscious world and the unconscious world. So what we're starting to see is that there is an approach that's coming on, and I've chosen this particular moment on the 28th. Of course, New Zealand is the first country in the world to see the date, so for every other country it is at some point in the previous day, 27th. So what we're looking at here is the full moon at this time, and the full moon, that is when the moon is opposing the sun, and in this particular moment also opposing Pluto, or the planet of depth, and it's also in relationship to two of the most significant timing planets in the solar system. In astrology there are two planets which cause timing. That is Saturn, which measures, if you like, the unfolding of a personality, and every cycle of the planet Saturn is approximately 29.5 years, which is where you get the so-called 7-year cycle, which is the quarter, the square, the opposition, and the waxing square coming back to its natal position, or to its original position. So that's the one tiny planet. And the second tiny planet, which is not so much a planet but in this case a trapped comet, is the body known as Chiron. Now Chiron has a cyclic period of between 50 and 51 years, and it affects the way in which, you know, the if you like, the wounding and the healing of planet Earth. So it came into our consciousness around, you know, in the mid 1970s, and it has effectively engaged us up until recent times, when a new body came to be accepted, which is a body known as Eris. And in this time we are effectively under the viewpoint, if you like, or the lens that the consciousness of Eris brings into being. Against all of that, what we need to be looking at is what are the major influencing planets in this period of time. So one of the things that we could look at straight away is we could discover that there's an amazing thing between what Pluto represents and what Saturn represents. So Saturn is the boundary between what can be seen with the physical eye. So in a sense, the boundary of the known universe is within the orbit, if you like, or within the containing orbit of the planet Saturn, and what is in the unconscious, or the consciousness beyond physicality, is bounded by the planet Pluto. So Pluto and Saturn are in a relationship one to another. They're both at a 9 degrees. Pluto rules the sign of Scorpio. Saturn is at 9 degrees Scorpio, and Saturn rules Capricorn, and Pluto is at 9 degrees in Capricorn. So they're in mutual respondence to one another, and they're both in a particular aspect which is known as a quincunx. It's what's called an inconjunct. It's difficult to express exactly what that means, but it is when something is pulled off balance. So it's not as oppositional as a direct opposition, because when two things are opposing, one can essentially balance the two forces. But when one is off kilter, it pulls you away from the spoke, if you like. And when two of these are focused on one specific planet, it's called a finger of God, or rather what it does is it puts the intensity of these two, the two focusing planets together. Now, what Pluto represents is the underworld, and represents intensity. And Saturn and transformation, the ultimate in change, is transformation from one thing to another, transmogrification, or whatever you would like to call it. And Saturn represents the stability, the stable forces, the organisation, the social status and money and those things. And these two are in cahoots together. They are working together and putting their forces onto the planet Jupiter. Now Jupiter is one of the most misunderstood planets in the entire astrological world, because it is seen as if it is the great expansory planet. It is it looks in the sky to be a marker of great beauty. It is certainly the largest body in the solar system, other than the Sun. But in reality, it is an extraordinarily tumultuous planet. When it has a day, it is 6 times bigger than the Earth, and yet its day is only 10 hours long. So the surface speed is incredible, and the storm that has been raging on there for 10,000 years will never cease. Now the thing that is most striking about this is that we have looked up to Jupiter, the king, so-called king of the gods, as if this is the greatest thing going, and yet its biggest marker, its greatest word that describes it is more. This is the planet of more of everything, and the one thing that has brought planet Earth and the social and society to its knees is the incredible desire of all humans and nations for more of everything, more territory, more power, more money, more of everything. And there is eventually a place where there is not enough for everybody to have more. And Jupiter then sits at the point of this finger of God at a marker of 8 degrees and 7 minutes of Gemini. Now, the Sabian symbols are another part of the astrological map, and these were symbols given to Mark Edmund Jones back in the 30s, and they are surprisingly accurate in what they describe. So what you have is you have Jupiter sitting at this 8 degrees 07 minutes, which essentially is the marker of between 8 and 9 degrees Gemini, and the symbol for that particular degree says that it's a quiver filled with arrows. In the end, that breaks down to the need for conquest. So essentially Jupiter is in its phase of grabbing as much as it can by conquest, by war and so on, by whatever means it can have of gaining the upper hand. So these two transformational and stable forces are trying to achieve this at this point. Now, it's just by accident, really, that New Zealand, if you like, the light of the new world, that is, because New Zealand is the beginning of the dateline. Now, and this is another one of those accidental things, is the British in their wisdom drew a nautical dayline or dateline running down through the Pacific that essentially makes New Zealand on one side and the rest of the world on the other. So we are essentially the first light, the first to see daylight of a new day. And so it is that it represents the beginning of a new life, or a new way of being, a new day for all of us. So the smallest, one of the smallest countries with one of the smallest populations, sitting there being a guiding force for the new vision, if you like. So we need to take it into account that the mid-heaven, the point where everything seems to be going, is also on that same Sabian degree. So everything is aligning towards gaining more for everything, for everyone. And it's really important to take that into account, because also at the same time, you know, we have another alignment that brings that into more important aspect, which is where the planet Venus is. Now, Venus, the planet, if you like, the planet of harmony, is in opposition to this. It is not really playing games or playing with it. And Venus's only other aspect is towards or to the planet Eris. So Eris has been in Aries since 19 2027, will remain in Aries until March of 2048. So it's a significant period of time. Now, because Eris is on such a elliptical orbit, only ever goes into 2 signs in the astrological horoscope. Although you could project it down, it doesn't actually go through them. So it will remain out until it goes into Libra in a significant period of time. So I don't really want to deal so much with it as such, only to recognise that it is the planet of disruptions. So Eris is an interesting mythology, because she's made out in the text as if she's the evil black witch, but in reality she's actually calling on the on the criminality of the person who is being married in the myth. One of the things about Eris is that she has a moon. The planet has a moon called Dysmensia. Dysmensia is really lawlessness, and so what you have is this pattern of disruption and lawlessness that comes in on the back of this disruption from this endless grabbing of more resources by presumably fewer and fewer people, or more and more of power gods, king of the gods, the Jupiterian people. Now, if you look at this chart around with its New Zealand aspect, you find that there's a grand trine going on between Mercury and Eris and the ascendant. So there's a whole nature of the communications as everything is trying to be more and more in its Leonic nature, giving force energy of the sun and its outermost marker of consciousness. Now, Eris itself is even further out, a long way further out than even Pluto. So in a way, it is in the unknowable realms. There's another important feature that goes on here, and that is the opposition between the moon and the sun and the moon. These are the biggest influences in our whole experience, is that they are squared to the transiting Uranus just at 4 degrees or 5 degrees of Aries. Now, Uranus brings about change. It brings about a revolutionary movement. It is the planet that is most assigned to social and psychological shifts, because Uranus, while it is difficult, almost impossible to see with the naked eye, it is, once pointed out, actually possible to see it. So it's on the very edge of our ability, and it sort of mediates, between the conscious and the practical realms. So this is really the planet that is most going to bring in the revolutionary shift that people are expecting. And it sits on the Sabian degree of 5 degrees of Aries, which says it's a triangle with wings. It gives us the capacity for self-transcending. Essentially, it's bringing in a new dimension of being, a new way of thinking, a new consciousness. So in the end, the old way of drive and emotionality is being transcended by a distant sort of way of looking at it. Of course, Uranus rules the sign of Aquarius, and we're already moved into the Aquarian age, which began in at the spring equinox northern hemisphere. So that is the autumn equinox in the southern hemisphere of the year 2000. So, and there are very strong indicators that this is the moment, and it's taken 12 years for its influence to come in. Now, it's really important to understand the way in which Aquarius operates over and above its predecessors, both Aries and Pisces. So Aries belongs to a long gone age, around two and a bit thousand years ago, which had with it, if you like, the idea of a god of vengeance. So we see that god of vengeance in the Old Testament, but after a period of time it came to an end, and the Piscean fashion of love and nurturing came in to follow that on. But and so what we had is the domination, the Aryan age continuing to dominate over the feminine age of Pisces, which has now given way to the yet again masculine age of Aquarius. So the old gods are being held to, if you like, the into the under the microscope of the mind, and to be shown to be lacking. That religion as such, beliefs in gods outside of our own ability to determine, is no longer relevant. So there are some interesting correlations in here, because while Uranus rules Aquarius at what you could call the mundane or the practical level, it rules Libra at a higher vibration, and as such it ties Libra and the Libran qualities to the age of Aquarius. So one of the things that comes out of this is that one of the important factors is the factor of building relationships, social relationships, through electronic means, because Uranus rules electricity. So we have seen the emergence not only of the internet, but of social media and social interactions in this present 12-year period from the beginning of 2000 onwards. So that's enough to start with on the 28th. So what happens as we move further forward and get to the 29th? Now, the 29th is moving ever closer towards this moment in time. And what happens in this period of time is we're starting to get greater shifts. We're starting to see that the movements have changed somewhat significantly, only because the moon changes at such a rapid rate. And what happens in this period is that Uranus begins to have a relationship with Jupiter, which previously it had, but only a positive relationship. But now it begins to bring in these quincunxes, or these inconjuncts, which focus a finger of God onto the Saturnian process. So now what's happened is, we have had, if you like, a shock in the nature of always grabbing more of everything, causes, if you like, the breakdown and more war. And you can see here that there is a relationship between Mars, which is actually in Aquarius at the beginning, so it already has its own relationship. Mars rules Aries, Uranus rules Aquarius. Mars is in Aquarius and Uranus is in Aries, so it has its relationship. But at the same time, this Uranus is the focal point of an energy gathering towards between Jupiter and Mars. So we're starting to see the whole nature of aggression and the accumulation of power being focused more and more onto this transformative and revolutionary planet of Uranus, and it now is a finger of God between these two forces onto Saturn. Now, what that does is it brings into intensity what Saturn stands for. Well, social order, organisation, status, money, all the money system, all of it is under enormous threat as it goes through this 9 degrees or 10 degrees now of Scorpio. And the Sabian symbol for Scorpio 10 degrees is a fellowship supper reunites old comrades. And essentially this is saying the value of comradeship is emphasised, the importance of building a stable community of work and experiences, and yet it's under threat. So the whole global building of holding everything together is really being held to a point of threatening. You've also, of course, still got the ongoing opposition of the Sun and the Moon, and the Moon and Pluto as the Sun moves ever closer. Of course, the Sun Pluto is always going to be squaring and bringing stress to this transformative and the revolutionary structures of Pluto and Uranus, both forcing a change, forcing, and energized by the Sun square to this, and both, of course, the Moon as well. So we've got this whole thing going on as we move further and further into this changing period. And this continues on, of course, through December the 30th, and finally we get to December the 31st. Now what happens on December the 31st is finally the Sun catches up exactly in conjunction to Pluto, and it energizes this intense connection between and off-kilter power broking with Jupiter. And so what we see is Jupiter squared to Chiron and to Neptune, which essentially is the dream is over. Healing from Chiron is beginning to take place, and both of those are now quincunxed or inconjunct to the Moon, which has moved into Leo. And the Moon is at 2 degrees 54, so it's 3 degrees Sabian symbol of Leo, a middle-aged woman, her long hair flowing over her shoulders and in a braless, youthful garment. What this is really saying is that there is a challenge of age in terms of our modern society's glorification of youth. So this is really suggesting that the old way of being, the old school, is finally broken, and there is a new level of independence. And although this symbol is saying independence, it really is a social interdependence brought about by the advent of social media and the fact that the modern technology now shows exactly what's going on, reveals. So one of the meanings for Uranus is not only its revolution, but its revelation, which is to reveal the old patterns, to show up what has actually been happening all this time. Now we can see that not only that, but at the exact moment that's happening for the world chart of New Zealand, we have a rising and ascendant degree, 9 degrees of Scorpio, exactly 60 degrees out from the Sun-Pluto conjunction. Of course, this is the same degree that Saturn is sitting on. So we have a Saturn going over the ascendant at exactly this same period of time. When Saturn goes over anybody's natal chart, when it goes over their natal ascendant, it is a marker for a change in their home life, a change in circumstances, and a growing up, taking on responsibilities. So this marker marks the 3 tones for the new consciousness, that is responsibility, accountability, and transparency. So these are going to come about because Saturn marks that there is a change of responsibility. It is building comradeship, globally, brought about by the electronic media and the fact that it has opened up the world of transparency. Now, transparency, along with anything becomes transparent. As soon as you can see it, you have to be accountable. You are held to be accountable. So these are the 3 forces that mark if you like, the new kingdom, the new thinking, and the new forces, the new way of being. Okay, so just to add all of this up, along with the Mayan calendar, there's a Mayan prophecy, and the Mayan prophecy talks about the 3 days of darkness. Now, those 3 days of darkness are not only in the Mayan prophecy, but they turn up throughout the Bible, and there are a couple of references here. In Mark 13, 24 to 25, says, "But in those days after that tribulation, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars of heaven shall fall, and the powers that are in heaven shall be shaken." So this is a reference to these, if you like, systemic issues and planets there. In Joel 2:28 to 31, "And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions, and also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood, before the great and terrible day of the Lord come." So these, you have to remember, are written in the language of the day, but they point always to a sense that there is a movement, a connection between darkness, Pluto, and the sun coming together, and in opposition to the blood moon. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if the full moon isn't a very red one in those days, as we turn to it. Okay, so then there's the Hopi. So the Hopi believe that there will be a 3-day period of darkness. The Mayan prophecy claims that the 3 days of darkness will happen at the end of the long count, right? And so all of this is worth taking note of. So one could say that we don't know for certain exactly what the what these 3 days are, but I'm suggesting that from the 28th to the 31st will be a 3-day period of time. Okay, hope this has been interesting and you'd like to hear more. Okay, this is Francis Evans signing off.